Today, we're live on Facebook. This is One Heart TV, and I'm so delighted to be here at noon with you all. We're getting started here with an interview. Been interviewing several women in our community, 805 area code, that are doing some incredible things, and I want to bring forth their information to you, so maybe it'll spark you. Maybe it'll get you to do something. And I'm so delighted today to bring my friend Becky Corey on. Hi,
Hi,
Becky.
Ellen. How are
Love,
you?
I'm doing great. I love where you're at in your back.
In my backyard. Yeah,
Oh,
it's going to become like a second office, which has been great because I live in a tiny house with four boys. Well, three boys and my husband. So, yeah, it's nice to have extra space to get out. And of course, I love being outside anyway. So,
well, I think this is perfect what you said. Before we get into your story, I entitled this COVID-19 Wine or Wine?
I did
maybe
love
maybe
that.
this is a chance for you to share. Living with several dudes in the house must
Dude,
be tough.
I got
Tell
a lot
us
of dudes.
tell us a little bit about you. You have quite the professional list. It was so long, I didn't even know where to begin. Becky, where do you find time? Who are
Yeah,
you?
like just like everybody else, just trying to fit in as much as you can to figure out where you're going in life. I don't know. So, this looks interesting. Let's do this.
Well,
So
yeah, it looks like you grew up in Colorado, as I
I grew
read.
up, yeah, I grew up in Colorado. I have, small rural parts of Colorado. My grandparents were potato farmers. A lot of my family, was involved with farming and ranching, and we had a lot of always emphasis on food and family and gardens and kind of being out in nature. I spent a lot of my younger years, yeah, definitely out, picking wild mushrooms and asparagus and a lot of outdoor activities. So, yeah, that's kind of my upbringing. Then we came to California when I was in high school.
Hmm.
So,
And
big change.
it looks like you got your bachelor's here close by at.
I did. I went to Cal Poly. In high school, I started working for different food outfits. So I worked for a catering company. I worked at a deli. And I really thought I'd want to go to chef school at the time, culinary school. And then I also had an interest in art and graphic design. And then I had my ag background. So I actually applied for Cal Poly initially under graphic design and submitted a portfolio, and I didn't get accepted. But I reapplied under ag business, and it wasn't as competitive apparently. So I was able to get in through ag business, and I started school, right after I finished high school. So I was at Cal Poly in San Luis for about. I lived there after I graduated too for some time. So I was there for quite a few years. But yeah,
Beautiful.
my bachelor's is in ag business, and then I also was one of the first people that went through the wine certificate program after it was approved. So really at that time, the viticulture program was just teeny, teeny tiny. So
And you were you one of the few women by chance in that?
I was, I got involved with it. Johnine Talley actually had done her senior project on the idea of a wine certificate program. So yeah, I was one of the first people that went through it. And when I started it, it was kind of a more of a non-credit focus for people
Hmm.
that were just interested in agriculture, viticulture and wine on the Central Coast. But there were so few wineries at the time that it was just starting. So yeah, and then I became involved with it more so afterwards when I graduated because I worked at Byron Winery for many years, and I was still in touch with a lot of my professors and was helpful to kind of organize some of the trips that I went on when I was a student. We kind of did the same thing at the places that I worked.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, a woman beginning in that type of field is exceptional to know. So, and of
I
course,
think at that time, people were so, it really wasn't an industry where you really had a job yet. It was sort of like you were involved in the local wine industry if you were a family member or if it was very more close knit. It wasn't something that you went into applied for a job or something like that. So yeah, it was at the very beginning stages,
wow,
which is odd when you think about it now.
yeah,
What it represents now. It's amazing.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really growing in California by far. And it looks like you're getting photobomb, which is lovely.
I am doing some,
One
yeah.
of your kids.
I was
Hi
on a
there.
Zoom, I was on a Zoom call the other day, and I looked in the back. I could see the reflection, and I saw one of my kids climbing down from the roof. So I didn't even know he had been up there. So yeah,
Welcome to your world.
exactly.
Welcome to your world with all those boys. I was fascinated, not only this story about your bachelor's, I didn't know anything about that. And having played at your winery as a musician, we got to know each other a little bit and
Yeah,
love your little space there out in Old Orcutt, California.
yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about co-owning the business? You started in 2003 with your husband, Core Winery?
yeah. We started really just on a wholesale basis, so we were not interested at the time in a tasting room or direct to consumer.
Hmm.
And then I think when the recession hit, it was just a really difficult time for people to have the distributors be their only source of income. And we were selling out our wine just based on shipping it out of state. And so we really needed to diversify. And I had worked for several wineries developing their tasting rooms. So I think that's partially why I wasn't interested in it, but it's really different, obviously, when it's your own. So we started that in Old Orchid. We opened our tasting room in 2009, and we started out at a small location where Carissa Nagy is now on Gray Street. And we were there for about 5 years. Then we transferred to the location where you played at, and we were there for 5 years. And just this last October, we did not renew our lease there. The rent was going up quite significantly, and we decided that was not something that we really wanted to do on a long-term basis at that location for what we would have to generate. Because as you and I had many conversations about that as far as how do you cultivate this community and this place where you really want people to gather, but at the same time, it is a business, and that was a pretty big task. It
Yeah.
was labor of love, but it was kind of a little too much to kind of keep that large space. So we moved out of there in October and secured a spot across the street next to Yoga for Mankind,
Right.
and just waited patiently for our licensing to transfer. And then we came upon COVID. So we've just been in a waiting pattern for quite a while, which
Right.
has actually been kind of lovely in some ways.
I bet.
So
Yeah, let's get to that. That's where I think I'm headed, and I'm glad. This feels like we are walking right into what I love, and I'm so passionate. So I love the wine part of it, and I love the wine that you've served, of course. But in regards to whining, people might see COVID-19 as a place to really fall and crumble. And I'm trying to
yeah,
look for ways where, how about we don't crumble? We look at, I think it was something you said, and
yeah.
I got to read this because I loved it. Okay. You sent me your
Okay. Oh,
email.
when I emailed you.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
said, I've been working overtime to see where are opportunities to highlight so many things that I think about constantly, like cooking sustainably, home gardening, crop swaps and ops, and
Yeah.
nutrition, cheese. Oh my God, the list goes on.
Or I had to throw in something that wasn't good for you, like cheese or, you know.
I almost took that out, but I love cheese. I love cheese. I do. I can't eat it really anymore because of my digestion problems,
Yeah.
but I can eat goat cheese and every once in
Yeah.
a while. But cheese and wine, but
Just right.
I love what you're talking about, the opportunities. You're starting a new business, it looks like called Joy by the Spoonful.
Yeah,
Correct.
I adopted it from a good friend of mine who actually moved out of the state, and
Yeah.
she ended up kind of splitting the business between myself and another person. And she wasn't really wanting to sell it to anyone necessarily. She wanted it to be sort of gifted to people that would kind of keep it alive in some respect. So it is kind of more of what I, in my mind, have been asking for in terms of doing some more cooking and springboarding off all these things that are, related, and I'm just honing in to try to find something that helps put them all together in a little bit more easily digestible, way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I loved some of the things, especially what you stated about vegetarian dishes and
Mm.
the kinds of foods that you're serving seem so fresh, which I love, like fresh vegetables and I don't know. Can you talk a little bit more about those ideas that you're formulating?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from my work at the college. I work part-time at Allan Hancock College in the culinary department. So I teach credit classes. So it's a wide range of students as far as the classes that I teach are catering, special events management, principles of food 1 and principles of food 2, which are kind of the two main cooking classes, beverage management. And then I've also had the opportunity to work in the food science nutrition department with a food customs and culture class on the lab portion. And then last summer, I taught some non-credit classes for the community. And that was, coming from the student perspective of someone that's in it for culinary disciplines that want to go into that industry. And then during the summer, teaching those classes for people that really just want to eat better. They
Yeah.
don't necessarily even want to be a vegetarian. They just know that they shouldn't be eating certain things, and they're so unfamiliar with how to properly cook vegetables, or just even knowing what they are outside of kind of the general, carrots, celery, potatoes, kind of more of the grocery store vegetables. And
Lettuce.
granted, there are a lot of grocery stores that definitely have expanded, and it's not, just that limited anymore, but they just aren't familiar with it, so they decide not to do it. So that was where it was kind of a turning point for me. It was like, wow, just having people identify what bok choy is, or certain vegetables and things that I just take it for granted that I know these things, but there are a lot of people that would eat them if they knew how to cook them properly. And most of those people that took those classes were also living in a situation where maybe they still had adult children at home, or they have picky eaters, or maybe there's the meat eater in the family, the vegetarian, the vegan, and there's kind of the main cook that's trying to accommodate everyone. So it was just kind of eye-opening to see that, where you were wanting people to understand that people have to take it they have to take control of their own kind of food philosophy, and that one person that house shouldn't be the only cook, for one, and that there's ways for you to develop your philosophy about eating early on. And so that's kind of where my passion is helping people discover that, and especially with kids, and things that I kind of, when I grew up, I just thought, I remember having a conversation with my mom many times about Doritos will kill you, or like
Yeah.
chemicals and processed foods. And I was born in 1970, so I kind of grew up in that age of all that new processed stuff, and I just remember thinking, you are so ridiculous. And now that I have kids, now I obviously I understand it better. So yeah, that's kind of where I really changed my way of getting out of the headspace of the culinary side, and just looking at regular everyday people that need help to figure out how to prepare that. And I think that's what COVID has done, is that people have had to come out of their comfort zone and get that CSA box that they may have never seen, half the things in there.
Boy,
So
is that the truth. I was just talking to Alejandra. Her husband owns the Urban Blosser Garden. I'm gonna
yeah, that's where we get our CSA from.
Yeah, and I would just get that half a crate every other week, and it was loaded, and I'd look in there like you said and find things, roots, and I didn't know what to do with them because you kind of get comfortable. I've talked with other friends with certain foods, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, and yeah, you just kind of make the same things, but I think there's a whole world out there that if we could just get those recipes, mix them up,
Yeah.
plant our
I
own
think
gardens too.
the other thing that I noticed was really missing in a lot of people's lives were different kinds of spices.
Yeah.
So they buy their spices at the grocery store in the spice aisle, and um, it's it might be more expansive than it used to be, but it's still fairly limited, because you're still kind of trained to think that the spice aisle is also like next to where the gravy mix is, and everything else that's kind of pre-done. So you're not maybe used to having to kind of create these flavor profiles on your own. And that's where vegetables can really sing, and when you really explore with different kinds of spices and different kinds of salts, and maybe different ways to add sodium to your diet or your foods without salt, or amino acids, and all these different things that people are hesitant to explore. And it can be a little expensive, so I think that's a deterrent for some people, kind of building your spice rack.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a big thing for me, like trying new spices, and really not thinking of them as being compartmentalized, just that you really can kind of build it to your own taste. And I think people are kind of trained to think that it doesn't go together, because
Right.
they're so used to kind of the prepackaged idea.
It's true. It's true. Um, like I said, I would get that, but I think what the best part of it was almost like it was a Halloween bag of,
Yeah.
I'd open it up and what's in there today? Ooh, this
Yeah.
looks
Some people are
good.
terrified by that, and some people are excited. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
I
know,
always tell, I encourage my students to enroll in a CSA program for lots of reasons, but also just because, especially in families, a lot of the students that live in families, and it's very interesting how, especially during COVID, this was a big topic in my classes, and just helping the students kind of get through this COVID period, that for some of them, they have a very traditional home that they might live in, where they're not often encouraged to be in the kitchen, or they don't really cook together, or they don't try new things. So this was really eye-opening for me as a way for them to kind of connect. But the CSAs were important as a way for people to try new things that they really didn't have a choice. It's like, I'm gonna spend that $40, and that box is just gonna come to my door, and we have to figure out how to eat it.
right.
So it wasn't so much that you went to the store and picked those, and somebody in your family was upset with you for buying something that they didn't want or didn't like. It's just what came at the doorstep. So you should try to make the best of it and figure it out. And uh, it's just changing your perspective on it, I think, has been a good thing. And that I think that COVID has definitely helped people relax their perceptions about what's healthy and what's good and what's not good.
Right, right. You know, I learned long ago for my own health reasons to shop on the outside. I talked outside of the grocery store
Hmm.
more so where the fruits and
Yeah,
vegetables and limited meats are, as opposed to the processed foods. And,
yeah,
moving away from that has got to be a win-win for our bodies,
yeah,
our ancient family members.
yeah.
I'd like to build a tribe here in the Santa Maria area, and I'll be talking to Felicity on Tuesday about backyard gardening. She's got a
Hmm.
sharing thing, because I'll tell you, Becky, I see oranges. I depleted all of mine. I didn't want them to waste this year
Right,
at all.
right.
And to the food bank they went, but I see in backyards all around me,
Yeah,
crazy full, trees full of oranges.
right.
And I'm
I think
thinking,
people just don't, they think of them almost as ornamental or something. They don't really think of them as being a source of food. And there's a lot of great programs that help. There's a program called Veggie Rescue. There's all kinds of groups out there that are kind of helping to pull all those resources. So that's great. And I hope people will do more gardening and be more self-sustainable. I've always been in kind of the restaurant business, so it's kind of odd to kind of sit on that side where there's all these people that are, um, supporting the local restaurants and the people that support local farmers and that whole chain
mhm,
of command, I guess, as far as the food distribution goes. But I know this will change restaurants and how they operate and where they're sourcing their food from. So I hope it can be more of a positive influence that way, and the breakdown of the their more large companies and
right.
distribution companies that a lot of people rely on, that they'll be more resourceful. They'll go directly to their farmers. And we don't have as much of that, I feel like, in Santa Maria. For as much agriculture as we have, there isn't as much of that as far as of movement as there is maybe in some of the other counties, or even in southern Santa Barbara County or in San Luis County. Um, so I hope that people will be more self-sustainable in the way they'll still go support local restaurants, but maybe they've learned that they can cook a little bit more for themselves and they can make something that's more than just kind of a midweek meal that they're not that excited about.
I think what would be wonderful, adding to what you said, was a class on herbs. Very few of us know them.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that some crow dropped a basil nugget in my, because now I got a fresh plant and I don't remember
Wow. Are you sure
putting
it's
that.
basil?
Yeah, I know. I'm so lucky, and I've got cucumbers coming in and a squash
Yeah.
and all goodies, and it's so fun. I would think it would be so fun to have doing something like that with your children. It's not that
Oh, for
hard.
sure. Yeah, we
Not
do
that
that.
hard.
We bought all of most of our plants this year. Any of the plants that we got were either part of the program at Growing Grounds in Santa Maria.
Right off of
They
Foxwood.
had seedlings. And then I also at Allan Hancock this semester I was the grant coordinator for a field to table program, and we had all kinds of plans in place that were not able to materialize because of COVID. So we ended up doing a food distribution for the students that were in the culinary department, food science, nutrition, agriculture, and the viticulture program. Um, and it was all student grown produce that, would have been kind of sold and consumed during the year as we were going through our culinary classes. So we ended up just making kits and we produced recipes for them, and they came, did a kind of a drive through at the college and picked up their stuff. So I have a few of those things that I started at home that I just took care of here and then took back there. But yeah, herbs, definitely, people kind of just don't think of those as being something that adds so much freshness and a dimension that's just so much easier to do dried herbs. But if you are growing them, they're fun to watch, and there's all different kinds, and they're easy for the most part to grow, and you can have a lot of edible flowers and things that are kind of fun, that
That's
are
right.
landscaping and beautify your yard too. And then you can use them, and you can dry them. And there's all these. One thing I think is kind of fun that I've seen on the internet a lot is a lot of these little videos that show you how to do these kind of like quick and easy propagation tasks. So say you want to start tomato seedlings, you can just take a slice of tomato in your kitchen, just slice a 1/4 inch off and just drop that in a little container with dirt and cover it, and then the seeds from that will grow. Or growing your green onions up, or certain things that I remember as a kid, my our windowsills were lined with stuff like that, avocado seeds, and you know
I've got an avocado seed right now on my.
yeah, all that
I
stuff.
don't know what I'm doing. I just plunked it in some water, so I
Well,
think
that's kind of a fun thing, right?
I
Sometimes
know.
it doesn't work, or some things don't live, they die. So
Or at the end
yeah.
of a lettuce, somebody said, stick that little chunk there back in water, and it'll
Yeah.
still keep sprouting from
Yeah,
the
some of them
center.
do really well, and some of them kind of just rot out. But yeah, yeah, there's so many things you can do. I think that was our big mission, was to get students to realize that you can do some of this stuff at home and just try it, because you can
Right,
get
right.
some personal satisfaction out of trying something new. And my most rewarding thing, I think, from this semester was just hearing how the students, commenting on when they would give me their review of whatever it was that they did. They had to submit a picture of the recipe that they made for their family, but they had to do something to show me that it was theirs. They couldn't just like Photoshop a pretty plate of food from Pinterest or something. So
Yeah.
they either had to put like their school ID or their little face in the picture. But the comments and reading what they had to say, a lot of them were really just, wow, I would have never put that together, and my family really enjoyed it. Whereas if we'd been in the classroom, it would have only been the student that would have been able to cook that food, and it would have been just kind of stayed right there. Whereas in the home environment and the home labs they had to complete, their whole family got to enjoy it. So I really tried to show them that this is your time to shine. You can really be the hero in your family and in your household, because everybody's got to eat. So I'm hoping it will be sort of a turning point for people, that even for the students that were interested in food, they'll still be able to take it beyond that. And again, just a way to connect with your family and just have satisfaction out of things that you're making or growing in your garden. It's really cool.
You know, when I watched a program some time ago about blue zones, people that live over 100 years old in certain parts of our world, and one of it was the connection of food and family is so
Yeah,
powerful. When the women are kneading that corn and putting the love into to the meal,
yeah,
it's just and food is so important for us. I mean, we can't survive without
yeah.
it. So,
It's wild. I think this COVID thing is really I think for me, the first 2 weeks that we were kind of quarantined, I really just took a lot of deep breaths, and it was a time to just really relax. And I haven't felt that relaxed and happy in a long time, as far as just taking in the things that our family needed and checking in on friends and doing things I don't always make the time to do.
right.
um, I don't always give myself permission to kind of do that because I have so many other things that I involve myself with. So I kind of just slowing down. And
Hmm.
then it was just kind of an uptick of all this productivity around the house, planting the garden and doing all these things and making sure the kids were on track to school. And I was teaching from the house. Dave's working from the house. So it's been really challenging. But my focus around the idea of food is really, I've really done a lot of writing about it and trying to do some research on victory gardens, and things that, in the past, when there's been shortages of food, there's been kind of a call to action. And in the case of the victory gardens, it was from the government, itself. And so
Hmm.
to me, if people could take away the idea that you don't have to just do grocery store shopping,
Right.
that would be I would think that would be amazing, that people even just moderately could back off that, and back off all the fast food and the chain restaurants
Yeah.
and all of those things that don't really contribute to our overall health in a lot of ways, not just your own body, but other
Right.
ways that these things are produced. And if you're interested in food politics or distribution and seeing the breakdown of that chain throughout this period is is really eye-opening if you're willing to take the time to kind of dig into it and read about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole nother huge topic. And
I
again,
think people use the term shop local or eat local,
right,
and it's
right,
just sort of tossed out. But if you really took the time to investigate just that portion of the breakdown
right.
and what that's going to do to kind of that corporate culture of restaurants,
Yeah.
and how they will or won't, survive, or how they'll have to modify how they do business, it really takes that meaning of shop local and eat local to a whole new level. It's not really just a catchphrase. It's like you actually see what it does.
Right, right. No, I agree. And it's so much fresher. It tastes so much better when it is local too.
Hmm.
And my hat's off to all of the beloved humans working out in those fields and
Yeah,
pulling like crazy around our area. We have strawberries and broccoli and all that good stuff, and they're out there doing their part. So I
yeah,
really do send appreciation to them.
yeah,
Wow, Becky,
absolutely.
I'm going to have to come back to most everybody I've been talking to because there's so much to talk about. I'm going to have to check in and see how your Joy by the Spoonful is going and if
Yeah, we'll
Core
see.
Winery has
I
started.
kind of been sitting on it for a while just because I haven't had the time to really develop it and figure out how to make it my own. The previous owner did a great job with, mostly on the side that I'm kind of working with, is mostly meal delivery. And
Mhm.
I would like to continue that to some degree, but there's so many other things that I want to add to it that I'm just kind of not putting the pressure on myself to get out there and just produce something. I want to really encompass all the things that I'm interested in.
Wow,
So,
wow. Well,
yeah,
I want to thank you for your time today. I don't know how I slipped in because you, you seem like you're going 100 miles a minute, but it's awesome.
it's
And
great. Yeah.
And you're outside. I think I'm going to have to jump outside. I didn't think it would, the sun would come through. I want to
The
thank
weather's
all of,
supposed to
all,
be like, for the next 10 days, I think it's all in the mostly low 70s. So
yeah,
this
little
is my,
fog in the morning and we're
yeah,
back to
I
our
love it.
normal
This is
temps.
my
Yeah,
favorite
yeah,
favorite weather.
yeah. Yeah. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us on here live on Facebook, and please comment in the section if you would, and I'll get back with Becky on those comments, or she can see them, and we can answer some of your questions about her business, her winery, and so much more that she's doing for the community. Becky, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you
Say,
for calling me.
say hi
Yeah,
to
it's been
your
great.
beloved husband, and
Yeah,
I miss you guys so much. The little orchid is so cute. Stay well, everybody out there. Just
thank
know that
you.
opportunities, there, there's possibilities we just don't even know about, right? Coming down the pike. All right, y'all. Be well. Peace, love. As
Thanks.
always, Jill and Lutz. This is One Heart TV, and thank you again. Bye bye.
Bye.